What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, and today we're back at it, bringing you 40 facts on the Warhammer 40k universe. Now, I've talked about the Imperium for about a week, so now let's dive over to Xenos lore. Matter of fact, let's do Necron lore. So today we're doing a few stories on the Necrons, and we're doing some Tau lore in here as well. So sit back, relax as we dive into this Xenos lore. In lockstep ranks, the Necrons advanced into the teeth of the Eldar gunline, their metallic bodies weathering the sporadic streams of monomolecular disks in a storm of sparks. All around the Overlord, his warriors exchanged fire with the enemy, the whine of shuriken rounds a continuous high-pitched wail among the crack of Gauss flares as the two sides closed in. But the Eldar were far from daunted by these new arrivals, their forces surging forward as they attacked with renewed fury. Vipers and jet bikes streamed out of the haze with a line of towering wraithbone walkers, fired searing beams of plasma into the Necrons' metallic ranks, each blast an incandescent bolt, sending ruined warriors crashing to the ground. With a flicker of thought, Orokin summoned the rest of his army, and in a tempest of crackling green lightning, they burst into reality through this gate. More slab-sided monoliths appeared from the curtain of light, their portals glowing with pale energies, while sickle-shaped attack craft streamed down, their weapons spitting death. Orokin strode into the forward ranks of the Eldar, his Warthside cleaving apart fragile mortal limbs in arcs of blood, while at his side the Lich-Guard hacked down any Eldar bold enough to dare land a blow upon their overlord. Even in the face of Orokin's impeccable advance, the Eldar held their ground. At this close range, their weapons were proving deadly against the Necron warriors, the constant rain of shurikens severing limb and penetrating metal skulls. Before long, a field of fallen sparkling Necrons' remains carpeted the battlefield between Orokin and his enemies. With a slow, dramatic gesture, the Overlord unveiled a blazing emerald orb. Spidery bolts of lightning sprang out from this object, washing the scorched ground with green energy. Where the bolt struck, fallen Necrons, metallic limbs and all, knitted back together, and battered warriors rose to their feet. Before the onslaught of newly risen foes, the Eldar Guardians vanished under a wave of grasping silver claws and hollowed-eyed skulls, their death screams drowned out by the march of 1,000 metallic feet. And now on to the next story. Hirek finally felt disdain for his foes as he dragged his mangled body towards them. One of his legs had been blown away, the sparkling stump scraping across the dusty battleground beneath him. In life, such a wound would have been a death sentence for the Necron tier soldier, but now it was merely an inconvenience, and a wound that would never stop him from killing. Crawling up over the edge of the enemy gun pit, Hirek reached out with cold metallic claws, a fleshy face contorted with fear. The creature fired its puny weapon point-blank into him, the last blast leaving a glowing slash of superheated metal across his forehead. Such feeble attacks were nothing to the immortal. Closing his claws around the mortal's neck, Hirek squeezed until blood and meat flowed out between his fingers. Flinging down the corpse, Hirek rose to his feet. His leg had finally reformed beneath him. The living metal now was powerful once again. At that same moment, 3 more enemies spilled into the gun pit, firing their weapons in a panic burst as they charged. Rising up to full, terrifying height, Hirek swung around his pulse Tesla carbine. The storm of lightning it unleashed illuminated his skull-like death mask as his foes were turned to nothing but ash. Farsight's commissioning of the Earth-cast weapon laboratories came into its own at the Battle of Black Thunder Mesa. Dal Ryu, a city the Watercast considered vital to morale because of its many youth training centers, had been plagued by the long-range artillery bombardment for days. Though Dal Liet's high command loathed to admit it, this city was on the brink of crumbling. Commander Bravestorm's retaliation cadres had sallied forth a number of times against armored companies that had crawled to the lip of Black Thunder Mesa, but they were becoming so low on ammunition that their efforts were proving to be in vain. Oshasera, in her merciless pragmatism, had already written off the city's defenders as a spent force. It was then that a pod, no larger than a single crisis suit, arrived in Dal Ryu via monorail. Marked with the very highest of security clearances, it was transported to the Firecast Command Center, and immediately it was delivered to Commander Bravestorm. Inside were 12 giant gauntlets, each shivering with an immense payload of potential energy. Bravestorm and his most trusted Shazvra each donned one of these Earth-cast creations, supercharging their battlesuits for one last great assault. They set forth once more to Black Thunder Mesa, dropping down from transport ships into the midst of armored regiments. As battle cannon shells detonated all around them, Bravestorm and his crisis teams used these power gauntlets to punch through the flanks of the Imperial tanks and physically tear out to their power cores. In the case of the Doomhammer Super Heavy tank, Terra's Knife, the fearless warrior Shazrel used his gauntlet to rip open the rear of the tank and manually detonate its ammunition supplies, destroying both himself and the tank in a split second. By using the wreckage of the vehicles they had already destroyed, constantly charging their location and staying low, Bravestorm's crisis team took a great toll on the armored companies while sustaining very few casualties in return. That was to change when two massive god machines strode into view. Strafing turbo laser fire into the mass tank with callous abandon, dozens of Imperial tanker crews were sacrificed in the resultant chaos, but the Titan's barrage was very effective. Every one of Bravestorm's team was blasted apart by the apocalyptic firepower, their crisis suits scattered amongst the scorched wreckage of the tank companies. The giant Walker engines were finally driven off in their turn when Admiral Kor Oli Mao Tang sent his Manta missile destroyers to ensure Bravestorm's sacrifice was not in vain. Recovery teams filtered through the smoking wrecks, dotting the mesa, horrified at the sheer violence of the spectacle of the Imperium had unleashed. Only Bravestorm still clung to life, but just barely, his suit critically damaged and its once vibrant shell as black as coal. Incredibly, he still fights in Farsight's forces to this day, though his body is a burnt and twisted mess. The replacement battlesuit he received after this battle is as much as a life support machine as it is an instrument of death. And now we come across the last story for the Tau. The Hammers of Dorn had always followed the Codex Astartes to the letter, but in this case, conventional planetfall tactics had turned out to be ill-advised. This was a massacre, nothing less. Apothecary Antilok edged over to a fallen battle brother. The dying warrior had a hole in his chest that Antilok could fit his whole fist through. Releasing the armor's curious, he plunged his reductor deep into his comrade's neck. A thick churning sound grumbled under the roar of battle as Antilok extracted the progenoid glands and stowed them with the dozens of others he had already flasked out thus far. The apothecary was intoning the last rites when there was a crack of impact. A Xenos warsuit thumped down in front of Antilok and pressed the muzzle of his energy rifle to his helmet. The apothecary froze. The alien assassin filled his vision. Statuesque and lethal, the figure would have dwarfed even a Terminator. "It is unclear," stated the giant in a stilted Imperial Gothic, its hidden speakers uncannily like a real voice. "You must know this one does not live." "Aye," growled Antilok, "and yet his due must be given." "Despite the likelihood of sustaining lethal damage yourself?" "Just so," said the apothecary. He fought the urge to cover the precious gene seed flasks. A moment of stillness passed. "Your stance is defensive, yet not indicative of self-preservation," stated the warsuit. Before he could reply, bolter shells detonated between the giants. Its shoulder-mounted blasters whirled around, obliterating the Space Marine running behind it. Its energy rifle never moved from Antilok's helm. "A theory: during the death ritual, you recover a substance and for information code that your warrior caste deems vital." Antilok stared up at the towering figure, but said nothing. "Interesting," said the Xenos giant. "Proceed then, by all means." Raising his rifle in a brief salute, the battlesuit boosted up into the skies on twin tongues of flame. Blinking in disbelief, the apothecary voxed, "Captain Ruman, when this is over, we need to talk." And that's where I will end this Storytime lore. If you guys like these stories, I greatly recommend you guys pick up the 7th edition codices. In a lot of those, you have stories and battles that really gave you some more insight and flavor to these armies. This goes to show you that the Tau aren't all bad, especially in this last one. This Tau crisis suit commander was like, hey, you know, you're just an apothecary doing your job. If you don't come at me, I won't come at you. I know this is important for you to retrieve the gene seed, but hey, if you come at me, I'm gonna strike you down just like I did your buddy. So that was pretty cool. I know you guys probably hated that, since most of you guys hate the Tau, but that's pretty cool nonetheless. This goes to show you that in the Farsight enclaves, they're really awesome. But once you get to the whole Tau main force, the whole Anva and the whole greater good thing, the Ethereals are just plain assholes. They're using like scent pheromones or mind control to control the Tau, but anyway, that's a different topic for another time. So if you guys like these Xenos stories, for example the Necrons and whatnot, go ahead and pick up those 7th edition codices, or pick up the brand new 8th edition ones. It's just they're slowly coming out, so you're gonna have to be a little patient if you want your own personal army codex to come out. I think currently we just have the Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Nurgle, Grey Knights. So yeah, there's a few left to come out. But yeah, that's all the time I've got. Let me know what is your favorite mini 40k story in the comments below, and I might talk about it. But for now, this is all I have for you guys. This has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'm signing out.